you, my dear, for joining. I'm today here with the wonderful Muslimah from the Soul Print Collective. And I would love to start the conversation with you just sharing a bit about yourself, how you came to be in the place where you are right now. What were like the things that awakened you or that shifted your perspective?
Okay. First, thank you, Anna, for having me here. I'm really grateful to have this opportunity. This is my first ever podcast, so thank you. I'm so excited. Yeah, so what started me down this path is I can say everything kind of goes back to childhood. But even though I got into holistic wellness first, it was for like nutrition and health when I was in 10th grade because so this is around when I was 16, I had eczema. And I feel like I was having issues with my heart. And every time I go to the doctors, like they couldn't figure anything out. And it was like, okay. So I came across this book called The Mucus, The Mucusless Healing System by Arnold Everett. And then so I became like a vegetarian for a while and I actually healed myself. And I haven't had eczema for a while. So fast forward um into college, I got married and I had kids. And then after about 7 to 8 years, and something started to feel off. I didn't know what it was yet until like the 10th year in marriage. And I'm just like, something feels off. And then I came across stuff about like hidden abuse and coercive control because I just was like, I don't know. I feel like I'm being grateful, but I just feel very unfulfilled. There's something missing here. What is going on? And so yeah, I came across like narcissism and hidden abuse. And I was like, oh my goodness, I was in denial for so long. I ended up into a depression for like almost a whole month, just like trying to wrap my head around certain things that was happening in my life. And that was like the pivotal moment for me. I asked God, I said, this is just very heavy. Like, show me the way, like the path. And that's how I came across narcissism. After I like made that prayer, it was just like, I don't know, I was reading something and I was like, oh my goodness, that relates to me, you know? And then I recognized like through this shift that holistic wellness is more than just nutrition. I thought like it would have to just be nutrition and wellness. And I was like, oh, I have mental health, I have emotional health and spiritual health. And so that's what got me down that path, learning more about the spiritual, because it's like we are spiritual beings first, living a human experience. And yeah, so that's what got me started. And then I was like, oh, so this is probably my main purpose, you know? Um, I have to let other people know because we have this thing that we have the abuse that's known physical abuse, right? Like everybody can know, everybody can see that. But then there's like the more subtle one, the one that's like abuse of your soul, the spiritual abuse, the psychological and the mental. And when someone takes that from you, like your mind, it's kind of hard to see other things, there's like a little damage. So it took me about, I would say, a year or two of just rebuilding my mindset, like reading books and getting clarity. I ended up seeing a therapist, and through the therapist, I recognized it's like I wanted her to fix me. And this is when I came to the realization no one can save you but yourself. You can have someone to guide you, but essentially you're going to be doing all the work.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, Soul Print Collections was born from this. It was called Soul Print Collections because I started journaling. And I was like, oh, I want to be able to give journals to people. So I'm going to have collections of journals. And so I designed some journals. I put on Amazon, and after a while, I took a launch course, and because I had to learn more about business. And I don't know that it just wasn't aligning with me. Like sales and marketing was seeming a little sleazy, just like something is not right. And then I came across learning that business is a spiritual game too, because I've always been in business too. That's a little background, like I'm entrepreneurial. And I recognize sometimes being a business is a reflection of yourself. So it's like as you grow, your business grows. And so through that, it became like my purpose deepened a little bit and it became more like branched out. And that's when the Soul Print Collective, because I was like, I don't want to just focus on physical products, the journals. I want to build it into a community, something bigger and to expand it. And yeah, so that's how I don't know if that's answering that question. So that's kind of like the timeline a little bit.
Wow, I love that because it is, I feel it's so easy to stay in a situation. And when you have this moment of oh my God, there is something off, that is and you find a label or you find like what it is actually, because often we don't know it, then it is such a feeling of like shock or despair or hopelessness in that moment. But what comes out of it, and I think you've described that beautiful, is um the empowerment and the insights that came out of it. So this moment of you realizing, oh, that it's something off, and oh my God, there's actually things going on that maybe you haven't realized, because sometimes we don't even know the words, or we have been raised in a way that things are normal for us, and then we realize like, okay, well, that doesn't have to be that way. And then things so beautifully unfold, and you can now give back your insights to other people. And like you said, going away from this physical products that is like a beautiful step to help people, or from the nutrition to an even more holistic standpoint of saying, okay, it's not just a physical product, or it's not just nutrition, but there is more to it. This is just sort of the bigger thing, and so things expand so big, which I think is just like divine, like explosion of insights. And oh, I love that. And I think it's so brave to follow that journey, because you said you're an entrepreneur, and I know you have kids, like, so these like balancing these two worlds together and still finding yourself and being, as you said, like working on yourself. The more you work on yourself, your business grows. That's such a, there's many things to juggle. So would you say like that the awakening, the insights you get are helping you on that journey of like being calmly, peacefully centered, present?
Okay. Oh, yes. I didn't even mention that I have children, right? Yeah, so I have 6 children. For those who don't know, I have 6 children. My oldest just turned 13, so I have a whole teenager now, and my youngest 3, and they're like 2 years apart. And yeah, even with children, as much children that I have, I always, from a young age, just knew that I was meant for business and something more. I just always knew that I was meant for something more. So even, I don't know, like sometimes when you're meant for something, like God gives you not more than what you can bear. So it's like, even though I have children, I was able to still have like a business, and juggling it could get overwhelming sometimes, but I think because it's already like in me a little, I don't know if that makes sense, that I'm just able to operate. So I feel like it's just the grace of God, basically. Just, I feel like it's just the mercy and grace of, yeah, because, and also I wanted to make note that there's so many layers to it. There's so many layers, because once you recognize something like tragic, like, abuse or something, it's so easy to, like you said, put labels or something. And after a while, I had to recognize that it's not much so about the labels or the person, like it's not being done to me, but it's being done for me. So I had to shift the focus on me now. What am I supposed to learn in this experience? Um, and how can I grow from there? So, um, yeah, but for as far as being mindful, I feel like also that I feel like I'm more mindful now, because then, and it was more of like a rose-colored glasses, so I was just on an autopilot. It was just like the children, feed them, they survive, and I don't even know. I have some memories, but I definitely wasn't as mindful as I thought. I just focused on nutrition. It was like, okay, as long as they're eating good, I'm making food from scratch, they're healthy. So I just, because I was focused on the nutritional health. But now it's like, now that I know it's more, it's mental, emotional, spiritual. And so as I'm learning this, I'm trying, instill that into them. And it's just a process and a learning journey.
Yeah, like you said, it's this layers. I think that's really beautiful, because you said you focus on nutrition first, and also like we have this physical awareness quite good, we as a collective, for like how our bodies feel, or if we're like having the weight we want, or if we're looking the way we want. But
Yeah.
as you said, the mental and also the emotional wellness are things that are like in most places, most cultures, are still like on the side, or even taboo, or even made fun of, like, oh, you're crazy or something like this. That might sound funny, but actually
Yeah.
it's much more deeper. So focusing, going from this just physical, let everyone be like well fed and beautifully, like with beautiful nutrition, but going deeper to saying like, okay, what's next? What does the soul need? What do your emotions need? Is there something stuck, or is there something that wants to be looked at? and to have like this more full view of things. I think that's when we open up, and that's when we also shift what you said, which is so powerful. Shift from like, oh, it's done to me and I kind of need to endure it or get or whatever we think in our different pains, to shifting to, which is like so courageous to say to like, oh, how could that be for me?
Yeah.
I feel like many people, I don't know how you made that shift, are even afraid to think like this, because this the world is happening to me is so much of a construct. It's part of the self-image. It's like part of who I am. I am maybe the victim of a situation, or I am the poor one who always things are happening to. And it's so hard to switch that around. So what is the thing that helped you like shift to say like, okay, well, the universe isn't breaking me, God is not supporting me.
I'm an overthinker by nature. Like I'm an overthinker. I had anxious attachment. And so anxious attachment is just kind of just, I feel like I'm more secure now, from like the healing, but that kind of, so like in my depression, I had all of these thoughts from overthinking, and first I self-internalized it. It was always, what did I do wrong? Am I the narcissist? I had all of these questions for myself first. And then so after about like this month, I got tired because also I was researching a lot. Like I basically got like a master's in psychology within that time, just trying to wrap my head around it and trying to accept it. And then I just got tired. I was just like, you know what? So how can I move from here? Like, okay, I learned all of this stuff about him and maybe my childhood, but what does that have to do with me? So that's when that kind of shift changed, because I just kind of got tired mentally. It was like, okay, so what do I do now? Who am I? Where am I supposed to go from here? Like, how can I just, yeah, that was the natural progression of it. Just my overthinking and reading and reflection, a lot of reflection. Yeah.
So basically your body kind of, or your mind, like getting tired of this, showing you, okay, now it's a shift. Now you can switch from this,
Yeah.
wrapping your head around something that big, and then having that period of maybe shock or needing to wrap it around, and then there's like initiation. Because I think many people, if they go into, oh, I'm depressed or I'm whatever, and putting a label on them, then it's easy to stay in that. Do you know what I mean? There's this like, it's like, okay, that's that, and they accept that very deep into them. And then from there, this, what you mastered within a few weeks, is like, okay, now I move. Where do I go? That's
Yeah.
a big step that some people take a long time to do, because they don't find the tools for them, or however you want to explain it. This is just one explanation of like seeing that. But I think it's interesting, because I'm totally convinced that everyone is able to get out of the hole that they feel that they are in. The question is just how. Where do you find the motivation, and which is the right approach to you?
Yes. Also, I like to note that I feel like it was God mostly, because now that I think back, I was in therapy before this revelation, because this is when it was kind of like, I feel like something's off. I just need to like do therapy. I heard about therapy. It was like, let me see. And I would like to know that when it comes to therapists, especially if they don't know anything about like narcissism or a certain type of experience, it's hard for them to recognize it, especially when it's covert, because it's very like subtle. So it kind of sounds like maybe you're just complaining, or, something like that. So my therapist didn't recognize it. I think I came to her with a revelation and stuff. But then also sometimes it feels like you're like self-gaslighting, or you're kind of gaslighting, because it's kind of like, is it really you? And then it's like you're thinking it's me again. And then after a while, I just recognized, this therapy is not working for me either. So I would say, I'm not really sure how long, but it was almost maybe like a year. And then I learned about coaching. I shifted from, it's like, okay, therapy was about learning about my past. Now coaching is about moving forward into the future. And so yeah, that was a part of the shift within that. So did I answer the question? What was the I just realized my mind.
Sometimes it's like so big.
Yeah, there's what's going on.
I love that you touched on gaslighting, because that was one of like my big insights when I heard the term first. I never heard that before. Then I was thinking like, oh, that's been done to me so often. known by my family, but like within school surroundings and stuff at work. And I didn't realize why I felt that uncomfortable until I kind of read that and dug deeper into it and researched it. And oh my God, okay, that's part of what I'm experiencing. That it makes sense that I feel off, or it makes sense that I'm feeling insecure even more than before because of da 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 da. And then it dawned on me, and for me that was a really empowering moment. So I love that there is these two ways of looking at discoveries like this. It could be like, you know,
Yeah.
a doomsday scenario. It could be like this. Oh, okay, now I know what it is, and now I can find a way out of it. Because sometimes I just had a talk with a beautiful woman, and she said like understanding is power, and I think that's the same thing. Understanding like the situation you were in or are in, and then deciding for yourself that that's no longer resonating. That's like the first step out of something that isn't meant to be part of our lives anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it took me a while just to even say the word abuse, because it was like, no, because abuse in my mind is just physical abuse. And it was the way like abuse is done to the mind. It was at a point where it's like, I wish I was physically abused, because again, I had that tangible evidence, because it's like with the psychological mental abuse, it's like, I don't know, it's like, I didn't know. Yeah, it's so much cognitive dissonance. That's what it was. Like this coding, like good and then the bad, like how can they exist together?
It's a big thing to like wrap your head around that, and to
Yeah.
that is part of your life, and then you with yourself can be sure, you don't have to like internalize everything. I think that's a big realization, especially for women who have been raised with this good girl thing of like, you're like, you need to be valuable, you need to be like very nice and always like helping and serving others before you do anything for yourself. Then it's so much easier to see like, oh, if not everyone's happy, then maybe that's my fault, and start internalizing, which is not ours. So
Yeah.
it's a big
Yeah.
no.
There were so many masks. So like as you're going through the layers of healing, there's so many masks that you're pulling off. Because yes, growing up, even though I may have been headstrong, I also, people pleasing or very porous boundaries, because it's like your parents said do this, so you had to do this. So it was like a lot of terminology I'm learning. It's like, oh wow, there's so much unlearning I have to do as I'm learning at the same time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there was like, oh, who am I really? What are my beliefs? What are my values? Not what did my parents or what other people say they wanted me to be. Who am I? And the thing was, I feel they're so insidious about like covert or hidden abuses, because people think, oh, how did you not see the signs? And it's very subtle. It's like chipping at you slowly over the years. Like it took me like almost 10 whole years to see like a whole mass fall down. Like, oh wow, this is you. Like I can't really believe. And sometimes you don't see it is because it feels like home, because you grew up in that. Like I grew up in a mentally, psychologically, spiritually abusive household. And yeah, so just like something that was familiar. It was a familiar chaos to me. So
And maybe we are like unconsciously searching for that same feeling that we grew up in, because it might sound strange, but it's kind of safe, because that's what we know growing up in family or in whatever environment. But there is this feeling of familiarity, and then it dawns on you that maybe there is another way. Yeah, I think it's such a beautiful journey, and as you say, like it can take quite some time to realize that, and it's not something to beat ourselves up for, because it's layers and layers and layers, and this is like a big realization that takes time to internalize. I'm always a fan of like not rushing things, even though logic rush. But then I think everything has its own time, and maybe before you couldn't have heard or accepted whatever you have been able to accept it after this, like around 10 years, and really be certain enough to say like, oh, okay, well, even though there's no physical evidence, I still feel this is abuse. I still feel this is not right, and stay firm within your within your opinion,
Yeah.
the evidence that we in our society so often look for isn't as obvious.
Yeah. And also because looking back, I had to recognize who was I now to who I was before. And it was like I was this headstrong woman. Like, I had my own business when I met him. And also it's like I felt like I was very confident, I was extroverted. And then I just became the opposite, so introverted, isolated, and it was just like I wasn't me anymore. I was like I didn't have any passions. Like what am I supposed to do? Like I know I'm meant to be more than a mother, and yeah, and also through the years, because it was 2020 when I had my spiritual enlightenment. Basically, it's been 5 years now, and you need to give yourself. I noticed lots of grace and compassion, and I wasn't giving myself because there was so much shame there, lots of shame and guilt and this feeling of obligation, um, that it took a lot of slowing down. So I did meditation. First, I thought, because of my religion as a Muslim, I just thought we just do prayer. So I thought meditation was just like something like, like religious. But then when I learned that meditation, you can do meditation for just quieting the mind and for slowing down. So I started to do meditation. And my first meditation I did was like an abundance meditation, a guidance for just like opening your mind to gratitude and stuff. And I cried. This was the first time I cried. And I was like, why am I crying? Yeah. And because also from me being through the abuse, I had a fawn because I've been in fight and flight. That's also another thing I noticed is like I'm going a little around, but I have flight and fight response, which was more of just like when I was younger. But then as I got older, it became more freeze and fawn. It was like my body was just in that fight and fight so long, it was just kind of like I dissociated and became numb. So I wasn't really a crier, and I wasn't um connected to my emotions at all. So it was so much just to connect to my emotion. So meditation helped me, music helped me because music does something where it moves you. So I was able to like use music for like when I'm writing or like some type of meditation that helped me to access my feelings and to be able to recognize what am I feeling right now and to sit with that because it gets really, really heavy. Like I said, lots of grace and compassion for yourself because once you shame yourself, it just makes it worse. It just embeds it and more.
You're just sucking it down even more with the shame. Isn't that like kind of an interesting cycle we have?
Yeah.
So numbed. I know that from myself. Everything was too much. I was always like numbing everything. And then when it came up and I realized like, oh, okay, so many emotions. And then how to deal with them if you haven't learned it properly. Um, there's lots of like overwhelming through emotions, lots of like, can I cope with that? Or should I numb it again? I think it's an interesting cycle. And then like there is this like these emotions are stuck somewhere in the body. So this release process of crying or shaking or whatever the body does if we let them settles down these emotions, and actually it's totally handled. Like you're totally able to handle it if you allow it.
Yes. Yes, because about the first 2 years of me healing, I thought I was healing, because I was learning about emotions, I was knowing my feelings, but I was intellectualizing, me overthinking. I'm like, oh, I understand this. I understand all of that. But I wasn't really actually healing because I was just intellectualizing my feelings. And true healing is actually feeling it, like feeling it in your body. You have to feel it to heal it. So, and it feels so scary sometimes because the feelings are heavy, but feelings actually, I'm not really sure what doctor said, but it takes about like 16 to 90 seconds for it to go through your body. So you just have to ride the waves and give yourself that grace and compassion as you're feeling like, okay, I'm feeling this anger, sadness, and just let it go out. Otherwise, it just stores in your body. But then I also learned that in order to take the emotions that have been stuck in your body for so long, you can move your body. So that's why, like, if you're dancing and you're moving or you're shaking or you're stretching, especially stretching around the hips, there's a lot of trauma stored in the hip areas for women. When you're stretching it, it feels like a big yawn. I remember I was stretching, like, it feels like a big yawn in the body.
Love that.
And then you feel really, yeah, they feel really good. And I know there's so many different modalities, and different things work for different people, which is good because I know you have some stuff stuck in the muscle and you have some people who can press it out. And but yeah, it's just amazing, just like learning so many but I feel like more of a focus on somatics, like you said, moving the body, breath work, because making sure you get in oxygen, because when you have been in these toxic environments and you're like flight or fight or fawn or freeze, you have shallow breathing. If I read something, breathe, I'm like, oh my goodness, I just realized I wasn't even breathing. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I always like
what?
feel that sigh of relief is for me the
Yeah,
that my body is coming out of any stress response when I feel like this. And then that's like, I think that's a good place to start to like listen to your body, as you said. And I love that you touched on the feeling waves, because for me too, that was such an aha moment to see like, okay, that emotion, however strong it takes about like maybe let's say 90 seconds the most,
yeah,
it's like going down, it's waving off. 90 seconds are doable. Like you don't have to numb yourself or take any medication, any drug, whatever, to not feel your feeling or eat or whatever we do to like suppress them. You
yeah,
it for 90 seconds. Everyone can. We're made for that. And to realize it's not that long. And no, I don't have to feel that forever because that's really painful. I think it's such a beautiful, empowering knowledge. But as you said, this intellectualizing thing is a big thing in our world, isn't it? Because
yeah,
grew up the way school works, it's so much about what do you know and not so much about who you are and how you embody what you know. So these
yeah,
practices in combination with the knowledge, that is, I think, where the magic is starting. And like you say, like doing meditation or doing any form of prayer, whatever, like religion or not religion, you're having together with shaking your body, moving it out, doing these like releasing of the trauma of your body. That's a combination that is like really freeing up space so that we can relearn much better.
yes,
Yes. Oh my God. I think it's beautiful that there is not this one modality. So you started with the nutrition, and I know you're focusing on that still, but
yeah,
it's the only thing. It's like part of like a big mixture of use.
yeah. They all work together because nutrition is still, I feel like, still play a role. And I would give you, I remember, my daughter was born. She's 9 years old now, but at that time, I didn't even know I was pregnant with her. I had eczema come up again. This is like probably like I would say like maybe 10 years later after I cured my eczema, and it came really bad. And I was getting hives, and there was one time I was in the shower, my whole body broke out in hives. It's like almost like a hive shock, and I'm like, what is going on? Like I'm eating healthy, like I don't know what's going on. And then so I'm focused more on health, and then I was like, let me get on a raw food diet now. Let me really just go plant based,
Mhm.
and that just made it worse. My teeth started hurting and everything. So I started. I think I had miso soup, and that actually helped. And then I recognized I was like low on vitamin A and D. But then I started taking a Bentonite clay. I was like, maybe I need to do like a deep detox.
Mhm.
But looking back in hindsight, that was just manifestations of my emotional trauma, the stuff, and that's when that mind and body connection comes together. Like when you're not taking care of your emotional health and the stuff is stuck in there, it will manifest into like rashes or these diseases, fibromyalgia. People like, they don't know what's going on with me. And it's like because you're not focused on other stuff. Yeah. And once you release that, then that's when you recognize a lot of the diseases and stuff. Not It's not just a manifestation of not eating well, but not being well emotionally or mentally, not living in your truth in yourself because you're just living for somebody else. And
Yeah.
it's like telling you, pay attention to me. It's like if you're not listening to your soul, the whispers, your body starts to say it now. Now it's like, look at me, figure this out. Yeah,
Like the sign that tells you like you wait here
yeah,
in here. And it's still so underrated, this like mind body connection, and this like they're still like, oh, you're imagining this and stuff. Like this is what I hear often back from people who are not open to trying something that is out of like evidence-based pharmaceuticals. But like you said, it is stuck there. So everything that you don't care for mentally or emotionally, you will have to take care for it on a physical realm. And then
yeah,
work yourself backwards, which so many people do with like who is really feeling really well in their body. Of all the people we know, it's not that big of a percentage. So that tells me there's lots of emotional and mental healing to be done, or maybe not even healing, but like mindfulness and seeing the signs that our body wants to tell us, so that we can come back to a place where we feel like really aligned with our purpose. And like you said, like this, like, oh, okay, that's my purpose too. So you had an interest in something, but then again, that is to your benefit, but that is also like another beautiful thing. I think that the thing we're interested in is also like the thing we're meant to bring to the world. And there's like the cycle again, that we can really share from our own experiences and help others see the same thing in themselves, but not from the standpoint of, oh, you need to try that because that's the only way, but to see like as a role model, to see like how much you changed and how much you shifted, together with like raising your kids and like healing from that mental and emotional abuse that you've experienced, and like setting your boundaries firm. It's possible, but it's in your mindset, as you say, if we can accept that in, or if we want to change that.
Yes. And also from being in nutrition for so long, like holistic nutrition, like when it comes to say herbs, for example, for like one illness or something, there's so many different herbs you can use, just like even nature, there's so many different trees. Like I just feel like God made so many different things that you can use even for one instance. So even like when it comes to healing, there's so many different modalities, you know, and we're human beings. And I feel like there was more of like human doings. And when we're doing so much, we're focusing on other people. But when you're you're focusing on yourself. So it's like everything that we're going through, all the challenges, is for us to come back to ourselves, to come back to God, to the unseen, you know, focus on stuff that's focused on your spiritual. Because when you focus on yourself, then you become of service. I feel like you become of service. As in, if you're focused on someone else, you can't really become of service, you know? I feel like it's just all about coming back to yourself, coming back to God, and to be of service for that, and to come together and unite. But I feel like there's so much discord, and I feel like that discord is because we're so focused on everybody else. We're judging people here, we're judging there, but I feel like we just focus on ourselves. What is our sole purpose? What is our strength? And we come together as a collective and put that together. Then it's major shifts.
Yeah, we would be such a more healthy collective or society if everyone is focusing on ourselves. And in there, like, you could say it's a paradox to say, like, if I'm focusing on myself, I'm able to serve, but actually it's not. I think we have made to, without going into conspiracy, but we have been made to believe that focusing on ourselves is selfish, but actually it's the contrary. And well, every mother knows, like, if you only look after your children and you don't like take even the tiniest bit care, that will only bring you so far, because then at some point you are depleted of every bit of energy, and you take it out on your kids, even if you don't want. So we need to nourish ourselves, and that goes for like the bigger scales as well. And what you said, like realizing that this is the place to start with everything, to look inside and to become still and slow. Everything of that goes totally against like what society learned us, of how we grew up. I know, like, we grew up quite far from each other, but I think there are so many similarities still. It's like you need to hustle or work really hard, and you need to do things like the other people do it. But that doesn't say it's right. And realizing this, like, okay, listening to my intuition and taking the herb or the nutrition that I feel is good, and not that is the right one right now because it's on trend. That's a different way of approaching yourself, and that's a different way of nourishing yourself and your soul, because you're like kind of getting more secure with yourself. You're not that much taking in the opinions of others. It's a form of care as well. And that combined with nutrition and meditation and connection to God in whatever form feels good. I think that's a beautiful place to start to nourish not only the soul, but also like the other people around us.
Yeah. And then in order to do that, it's about moving from that subconscious mind to the conscious mind. And I don't know if I remember this, the statistics, but I feel like is it 95% of our brain is subconscious and 5% is conscious. You can imagine. Yeah.
It's like what is most.
5%. Yeah. And so can you imagine like all of the habits and behaviors and the opinions and everything is in the subconscious mind? It's just automatic. So to shift from that subconscious to the conscious, that means you have to be mindful, you have to be intentional. And that takes work. And that is uncomfortable at times. And I feel like people probably shy away from that because of the uncomfortability. But that's where growth is in the uncomfortable. So one thing also for me was always like, oh God, just make me be comfortable with being uncomfortable. You know, I love that. Be so that I can be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's the only way, because in order to change, you have to change what is it, the pain of which you're going through. You know, it has to be, what is it, higher than the change of the change that you wish to seek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting because we shy away from change or these uncomfortable feelings, but with this shying away, we make it even more painful, but in a known way. And I think that's really interesting because it's, for me, that reflects the fear of the unknown, or maybe we can also say like the trust in God, source, the universe, to support us and guide us along our ways, even if we don't logically know what is coming next, even if we don't
Yeah.
know the steps. But like the moment we trust, things are revealed. I chewing on a sentence that is like certainty beyond logic, which I think is really beautifully fitting in there because it's describing exactly this. Logically, that and that and that might be the next step, but what do you really think you can do? If you're really certain, I think you can do anything. But the moment you doubt yourself and let that autopilot program, that subconscious part that isn't actually you that much, which
Yeah.
scary thing to think like, okay, 95% of me, is it actually me? No, it's
Yeah.
actually some programs to like come back to yourself and consciously program into yourself, like with what you said, all these tools, meditations, or these little shifts of how we eat, how we drive, how we do things. That is like the way we reprogram. And I think that's something that I would love to touch upon, because this subconscious mind reprogramming, there's a lot of stuff out there, but nobody really ever talks about, or almost nobody, how it's done. And that, yeah, that's maybe because it's not that tangible. It's not like, okay, do this 10 times a day and then you see a result. But like, what has been your biggest tool for like reprogramming that autopilot and coming to like a more conscious choice in your day?
Okay, yes. I noticed first it starts with lots of reading books, especially when it was self-help book or motivational empowerment books and audiobooks. Because when your mind is so used to be on a negative loop, you have these negative thoughts. You have to be able to input some positive thoughts and positive words in there to kind of dilute it out. Kind of like if you have a cup of like juice or something, they say this juice is negative thoughts. And then you pouring water in there, that positive, as you keep pouring it, it keeps diluting. So that was my first kind of like that, inputting all of this positive stuff, kind of getting off. And then once you be in a, and then being conscious of your thoughts, like if you're doing something, you're thinking something negative, like, oh, you know, and then sometimes something from a book that you read or that you listened to will come up, and that kind of help. And then after a while, become more, after becoming conscious, become more of a habit. Sometimes you might find yourself like going backwards. That's the thing about healing, is not linear. Excuse me, my throat. It's not linear. So there's always this like up and down, you're going backwards. But even though sometimes you go backward, there's still something, in the unseen that you're going forward. And it's just about just trusting that process. Um, because affirmations, a lot of people say that's what I got stuck for. Like, oh, affirmations too. But if your body subconsciously you don't believe it, affirmation's not even gonna work, because you're gonna just be saying this stuff. Because I remember when I started saying affirmations, let me try this affirmation stuff, and it just felt so silly, like And that was, and then I recognized that's why. It's because I'm saying it like consciously, I want to believe it, but my body doesn't believe it.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's just a process. For I know there's different, like you said, there's different modalities to figure out what works for you. And I feel like I'm still kind of like in that stage of working at like that subconscious mind. But like I said, it was like lots of reading for me and audiobooks, just kind of inputting positive to remove the negative first. And then journaling was actually sitting down and thinking about, what is my beliefs, what are my vows, what am I taking on, and how can I reframe that to something, that I believe in, that I want to believe.
Mm-hmm.
And then taken also to, you have to take the actions to, for the belief, because the belief is the evidence of what you believe in. So if I say I'm a reader, but I don't read, then I don't believe it that I'm a reader, you know? But if I start to read and I keep reading, I say I'm a reader, then once after a while, it's like my body believes it and it becomes easier. So I feel like it's just about taking the actions of what you believe is. You have to show yourself what it is that you believe in and to build that evidence. And then after a while, it becomes easier.
Yeah.
Yes.
We are creatures of habit. So like,
Yeah.
it's interesting to like approach it from two different sides, approaching the mental side and like really filtering, diluting down these negative thoughts to something better, replacing them with something that is more empowering until you can read an affirmation that says like, I love myself and everything's good. And you
Yeah.
actually feel it, you know?
Yeah. And you have to embody it. Yes. You have to embody the affirmations in order for it to like work.
And then on the other hand, like really making the effort and sticking. And I think that's maybe the harder one for people to sticking to a new habit, even if it's so tiny, so that your body believes it's part of your reality. So
Yeah.
you said if you only read like maybe one page a day, after a certain amount of time, like you think like, okay, well, I didn't even read one book, but your body believes now you're a reader. So it's much easier then to read 2, 3, 20 pages. So it's I feel like the most important thing that I found to be of service for other people is believing that they can do it, like holding that space for them. It's not even so much about the tools, although they're valuable, but like having this combination of helping people to believe that they are able to do things. Like you said, you can easily hear these affirmations and hear these positive statements and fill yourself up with books, but you can also easily not do it. And I think this inner motivation to say, like, okay, I want to change, there is maybe even like this pull to that information that is, I think, such an empowering moment that even if we don't see results right now,
Yeah.
time, to dilute the water, but it's still working. And then to keep the belief and the faith that it is working beyond our physical evidence.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
Yeah. And that's why I put like the Soul Print Collective because I recognize community too. So not just like books that you're reading or audiobooks, but the people that you surround yourself with because you are the product of your environment. And so if you're around people who are toxic, you become toxic. There's some parts of you that are toxic because you're looking at this frame through the lens of what you know. So that's why it's kind of good to, surround yourself with people who are more positive and then becomes a sounding board or they be there for your blind spots because sometimes we don't see everything, we don't see everything. And yeah.
How do you imagine like the Soul Print Collective? Is there any like what is your big desire on how do you want it to look like?
Yeah. So there was some I had what to say? I just kind of like wanted to be like a hub for, like I said, like a hub for healing. It was mostly a focus on women and moms, but just women in general. Um, just access to knowledge on how to heal and basically coming back into yourself and from knowing the awareness for toxic relationships or abuse or just even for feeling unfulfilled in general in life. Like you feel like you're not living your path, because you're doing something else. You're just going to a 9 to 5 or you're just doing this because your parents said do this or, just finding your soul's purpose because soul print is just like there's a blueprint, there's a map to something. Soul print is more of like the map of yourself. Like finding what are the God-given talents and characteristics of you, being able to get to know yourself. What is your print in life? Like, what is your fingerprint? Not what someone else says. Not what is your blueprint. Somebody passed you, but what is your soul print? That you can use so you can guide yourself and others along the path. And so, in the future, I just see, like I said, like just have like coaching programs, to help people like one-on-one self-help. But then also, I see myself as a speaker. Since I was young, I always see myself as a speaker. So I feel like that's kind of a direction that I would go to. Just being able to share my story and be a guiding light for others. Just around, just having that impact around. Not sure where it's going to take me, but that's where I see myself. Um, and then also having resources. Like I said, I have maybe like some journals or just different things, just kind of like products on the side though. But the focus is more of hands-on, like feeling, showing the people. Because like I said, we live in a society, it's easy to intellectualize. And if you wanted to kind of heal faster, even though healing is not something that you kind of rush through really, there's something that's like a more of a slow, because your nervous system needs to be slow, especially if it's used to being like on this fast roller coaster. It needs to slow down. And that's why habits, like you mentioned, reading like one book a day, because habits are hard to change because your body's still trying to protect you. Like, oh no, this is what you believe. I want you to stay here. So it's about just small little steps and steps.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you said, like this, having a collective, having a group of people that is like-minded, that was what my first coach told me, and it still is empowering me after years and years and years. It's like this, having this community who is supporting you no matter what, who's like
Yeah.
path. And each and every one of us is, like you said, with the soul print, on their own path, but we are moving like together in the same direction, and therefore there is support and non-judgment, non-comparison. But we are like, we can share tools, and we can like motivate each other to go beyond that subconscious programming that says like, no, you're not reading today because like, well,
Yeah.
spend your time hustling or whatever comes up. And instead, like, always reminding ourselves to get back there and just do these little things. So, oh, I'm so excited for you to.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you.
amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so since I just wanted the Soulful Collective is just a safe space, a community, a collective. And usually people are usually going down this path are more intuitive. So like empaths, sensitive souls, coming together and to recognize like our experiences and to know that it's possible to hold each other accountable for it. Because that's another thing, even though you can be a victim without having the victim mindset.
Yeah.
Once you start to take radical responsibility and ownership that, oh, I have will and power to take, to make choices
Yeah.
and knowing that. Yeah.
So true. Where would you love people to connect with you? I know you're doing that on Instagram. Is that the perfect place to reach you, or is there?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, I have websites and everything already built, but I was more focused on hitting abuse. But now did a little pivot and I feel like I want to just expand it to just overall personal development and soul purpose. So whether you're going through hitting abuse or some toxic relationships or just looking for overall self-development, healing from past traumas, yeah, I'm on to Instagram on the .soulprint.collective.com until I get my name changed, because like I said, I had a faceless page that's just the Soul Print Collective. So yeah, it's gonna be the Soul Print Collective.
I put that down in the show notes so that people can just reach
Yeah.
you and connect. Oh, I'm so excited to see everything unfold, because it feels like something really powerful and something really big that you're expanding into. It's so exciting.
Yeah, so as I grow, like I said, the business is a reflection of you. So as I'm growing, it's gonna continue to grow. Yeah.
Growing simultaneously with you. So that's so beautiful. I love that it's almost like a universal law that the moment we expand, everything else in our world is expanding and getting better and getting better. And that sounds so cheesy, but it still is true. And I think that's
Yeah.
so beautiful, so soothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. I thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. And
You're welcome.
I love that holistic perspective of these, bringing together all these beautiful insights from different places and merging it into this one vessel that is not excluding things, but it is like inviting things in. I think that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yes.
You so much, my dear.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.